Absolutely. I think it should be just not like a 1 month fiat free challenge, like go for a one lifetime fiat free challenge, like use crypto every single chance you have in every aspect of your life.
So, hey everyone, I have the fantastic pleasure of once again speaking to the one, the only Roger Ver. How's it going this fine morning, Roger?
Another day in lockdown paradise. So nice to talk to you again.
Yeah, how has it been generally for both personally and then for the business, as it were, in these trying times? I know that a lot of people are affected extremely differently depending on personal styles and business.
For business worldwide, this is an absolute disaster, right? This is just absolutely horrible for the entire world's economy, and I think way more people are going to die from the economic disruption than the actual coronavirus itself. For me personally, I'm at home on the computer pretty much all the time, every day, or I'll go to the office and be on the computer there, so it's not much different. But I'm not able to do my exercise I love. I love doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I haven't done that for over a month now, and that part's driving me crazy.
Yeah, definitely. I think that especially there's a big physical link between them for mental states. And I think that a lot of people can, it's it unfortunately makes me think of Ross Ulbricht and the unfortunate effects of being just locked down in a very, very small room for, years and years and possibly the rest of his life. And we're all experiencing kind of a slight taste of that, like a little essence of that. And
as someone who spent some time in prison myself, being locked down at home is nothing like being in prison. And Ross has been in a much, much tougher prison than the one I was in as well. So I'm sure he's having an even more difficult time.
Exactly. There's levels to that. And it's funny that it's interesting, I should say. Some people are having a very tough time psychologically being at their comfortable home for so long, their own thoughts and things like that. And then when you start going to the levels you've experienced and then the levels Ross has experienced, now you can start seeing kind of the inhumanity of that whole thing. But that's a giant tangent. How in general, for example, like let's take specifically Bitcoin.com, how has that business been affected by the whole changing global scale? And I think it's especially interesting to talk about how digital and global kinds of companies like are contrast with others, but there might be some similarities. Like what's been different?
Yeah, to be honest, I don't think we've been affected much at all because we're a website that people use while they're on the internet. And so if the whole world is locked down and everybody's at home on the internet, that's more potential people that can come to our website and get involved with what we're up to. So far, we haven't really noticed any effect with Bitcoin.com itself, other than people are, for the most part, working from home and not coming into the physical offices, but we're still busy paying the office rent. But we were paying the office rent anyhow, and our revenue hasn't really changed much due to coronavirus. So from that perspective, not much has changed.
Have you noticed an increase or a drop or otherwise shift in activity related to, say, cryptocurrency during this time?
Yeah, I should probably check like the Google Analytics and the traffic stats, and I don't know offhand if there's been an uptick from the coronavirus lockdown, but I haven't noticed any sort of downtrend. But I didn't look at the actual hard data. But my gut feeling is that if anything, we have more traffic now than before.
Yeah, from my very cursory kind of sharing content around, engagement tends to be down, especially during the week, whereas like mostly people would have been at the office and bored and just clicking through things, and now they're at home and they're probably scared and they're looking up all kinds of
face masks.
Yeah, they're looking up all kinds of stuff on the internet that just talks about the current situation. I noticed engagement's down, but then on the weekend where mostly I wouldn't get as much engagement, now it goes up because now, people aren't out and about having a good time. They're just still stuck at home, but now they're not thinking about work as much. They're still trying to relax. So it's been kind of an interesting thing. Do you think that cryptocurrency is going to get a leg up because of the changing economic realities? I mean, first on about the virtual kind of aspect to that, where cryptocurrency works anywhere in the world, doesn't matter the borders or doesn't matter anything. You can just send and receive and it works. And that might be more necessary in the future where more businesses are being forced, keyword forced, right? Forced to operate remotely and, in a kind of quarantine zone. Do you see that as a thing that is going to thrust cryptocurrency forward, or maybe the economic effects are going to be bad so that people aren't as adventurous and it kind of, pushes cryptocurrency backwards?
Yeah, I think we have, a little over a month's worth of data at this point, and it doesn't seem to have had much of an effect at all. If you look at the overall price and market cap and number of transactions taking place each day, maybe there's some additional interest in the cryptocurrency space that'll result in some more adoption happening later. But in the short term, there doesn't seem to have been, much change at all.
Yeah, what do you think about compared to from the perspective of what governments are doing, and specifically central banks are doing to supposedly respond to the crisis? That do you think that that's going to end up? I know a lot of schools of a lot of people I've read on the internet seem to be clicking their heels that like, oh, everything's crashing down. That means Bitcoin's going to go up and I'm going to get rich, which I'm sure is an extremely simplistic take, whether it's right or not. What do you think about that whole thing about basically the devaluation of fiat currencies affecting interest in cryptocurrencies?
Yeah, so the fact that governments around the world are busy, printing money like crazy, that would appear to be really, really good for cryptocurrencies for anybody that's paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other side of that, how much of the world is paying attention, right? What percent of the people even understand the fact that when governments print more money, it makes the value of all the money that's already out there in circulation worth less? And I wish more people understood that, and I would like more people to understand that. But I think the fact of the matter is that's a relatively small, very, very small percentage of the world. Most people are just busy living their lives, and they don't have time to study monetary policy and look into cryptocurrencies and Federal Reserve policy and any of this sort of stuff. So yeah, I guess the whole thing is just a bit frustrating that there is an alternative, but not enough people know about it. So all we can do is try and spread the word and let people know, hey, check out this thing where you're not at the mercy of politicians and central banks. Give it a try.
Yeah, that's kind of that's something that's definitely popped into my head. And I was brainstorming with a few friends on a podcast a couple of weeks ago, and we came up with this thing called the Fiat Free Challenge that basically we're encouraging people to try their best for 30 days to live off of nothing but cryptocurrency, or get as far as you can, see how many of your bills you can knock out and see how many things you can spend, and just to sort of see where you're at, to see how feasible it is. Because I think that a lot of people might be pleasantly surprised at how far they can get. And more importantly, a lot of people could be very much caught in a bad situation if they're scrambling in the effect of like a hyperinflationary situation like Venezuela. If that would happen, some people might be caught in a bad way, and then they're scrambling to see, how can I use something different? Oh, does my gold work? How about this digital gold? Does that work for buying stuff? No. Oh, and then they're in a bad situation. So it's kind of a way to push people to kind of experiment with using cryptocurrencies for daily money today. Now, do you think how feasible do you think that is in a lot of cases?
I think it's pretty much totally feasible, with the only parts to being difficult maybe for people would be like a mortgage or a car payment. And that's about it. Like just about everything else you could do easily. And you can buy Amazon gift cards or at giftcards.bitcoin.com, which then lets you use like Amazon Fresh, so you can get all your groceries delivered right to your door using cryptocurrency there. You can buy everything else on Amazon at like a 15 or 20% discount using purse.io. You can get Uber Eats gift cards as well for your Bitcoin Cash at giftcards.bitcoin.com. Like between that and like all the different gift cards that are available for Bitcoin Cash, like the only thing that you can't get, I think, at this point is like your mortgage payments made. And even that you could probably, it would take a little bit of extra work, but you could probably get that done using like local.bitcoin.com and find someone that'll pay directly to your mortgage supplier for you, and you pay them in Bitcoin Cash. So if you combine local.bitcoin.com with everything else out there, I think you can get just about everything done at this point. So
yeah, it's funny you mention bills, because something I've been very pleased to, I guess, recently use is something called Lamium, which it's BTC and Dash only right now, but it's essentially a purse type situation for bills. And so basically you upload your invoice, pay it, and then someone will pay it for you with fiat. And then I tried it.
Is there a discount or a spread either way, or how is that looking so far?
I believe for the buyer, for the person who's actually paying the bill and receiving the crypto, it's 0%. It's basically a free way of getting it. And I think there might be a small service fee for the actual for the company, for the person who wants to pay their bill with cryptocurrency. So it's not necessarily an incentive to acquire cryptocurrency so that now you can pay your bills, because
it's still super useful to pay any bill with crypto. Sure.
Yes, and I found that if this was it, some friends of mine in Switzerland were first introduced me to this or involved with that, and obviously the banking system in Europe is much more streamlined than US. US is very antiquated, and so at first I thought it was like Europe only, but then I had the good fortune of trying it out here, and it worked. Paid the electricity bill, and there we go. And so that's one more thing that can be kind of knocked out with that. Another thing that I think a lot of people don't know, if you're anywhere in the world that has Walmart, Walmart has a bill pay section where you can pay taxes, child support, all kinds of stuff for the kinds, again, Walmart, the bank of the unbanked, kind of. And so there I've heard rumors of people being able to buy Walmart gift codes with crypto and then using it to pay bills.
Pay other bills. Interesting.
And if that's, I did try that one time, but I was not successful because the Walmart Pay, which is the in-app payment kind of app that they have in order to avoid all those nasty credit card fees, the terminal was not set up at the bill pay station, and so they couldn't do it or some nonsense like that, and I just didn't anymore. And now that I have Lamium, I don't think I'll need to do that at all, but it could be an
interesting option. Yeah,
another option there. So after that, kind of what can't you buy?
Everything, right? You can buy everything at this point, I think. So great point. How do you spell Lamium?
LAMIUM.io.
Good to know.
So now you mentioned Purse. Now I know Purse has been in the news lately because, first off, Purse is the original darling of crypto adoption. It's the first thing that people were like, why would I want this Bitcoin stuff? It's like, well, you can save a bunch off of Amazon, and everyone wants to use Amazon. And then obviously the market diversified significantly. There was a lot of other options that let you basically buy things off of Amazon with crypto, although in a different way, and usually not with such kind of high savings rates. And then, I sort of didn't hear much about Purse for a few years other than just, still chugging along. And then one day there's this message that says, hey, we're shutting down. And I was pretty surprised. And then later I received some other message that, hey, we're not quite shutting down, maybe. We're kind of under new ownership and we're still up. And so I don't know, do you have any extra insight into that whole situation?
I do have some extra insight into that whole situation, but I can't share all of it publicly yet. Long story short is I'm sure they're not shutting down or going anywhere. Mm-hmm. Stay tuned for more news on that. And if you haven't tried it already, check out Purse.io, and you can literally save 20% off every purchase from Amazon. The microphone I'm wearing right now, I bought on Purse at a big discount. It's just such a fantastically useful service.
Yeah. Now, obviously, this is where you just say, yeah, I'm not saying anything if there's absolutely nothing you could say. But is there any ability to speculate on what could have gone wrong in a situation like that, because it seems like a fantastic service from a consumer perspective. People love to spend it. The business model, I mean, if you have a giant discount that gets customers in, and you got I would assume no shortage of customers, so you can save money, and you're not necessarily profitable at that point, one could think that you could just reduce the discount a little bit, or there would be some kind of equilibrium where it all balance out. But it seems like a fantastic business idea, and I don't know why I would have trouble. Do you have any guesses?
I can give a little bit of insight into that. So I think one of the bigger fears there, and there were a lot of little things that added up to that initial decision, but one of those things was they were worried about running a custodial wallet and being deemed a money transmitter, and then having to apply for a zillion licenses from a bunch of regulatory bodies. But imagine if you were to combine it with a service like local.bitcoin.com that's non-custodial, where it never touches the funds in any way, but still provides both the buyer and the seller, the equivalent of an escrow in which they're sure that nobody's going to run away with their money. That would be the best of both worlds, because then you can get to use everything on Purse, but it's in a non-custodial manner where the Purse platform is never touching the money. Like, that would be fantastic for the whole world. So stay tuned.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like a great use case for the technology. And that's one thing that I didn't understand Purse at the very beginning. And then I had to actually, before I trusted the service, I had to read an explanation of how it works. about why does this work for irreversible currency as opposed to like a chargeback laden one, and how is it, how do the economics of it work? And so, do you think that do you see the regulatory environment, which is something we all don't like, but it exists and it's a reality? Here's a situation with Purse where it could have threatened a prize business there by imposing onerous regulations, etc. How do you see the regulatory environment globally for cryptocurrencies? Is it
horrible? To sum it up in a word, horrible. And you have to you don't just take into consideration what's seen. So what we saw is like, okay, Purse was a little bit scared because of maybe some regulatory stuff. But what's not seen is how many thousands or tens of thousands or maybe even millions of businesses around the world that never even started because they were worried about the regulatory hurdles that they would have to jump through. So what amazing new platforms, what amazing things didn't even come into existence because people were worried about the regulatory things. And not just in the world of crypto, in the world of healthcare, in the world of technology, in the world of all sorts of different things. What didn't even get to come into existence because of these regulatory hurdles that have been put into place? And it's just almost heartbreaking if you stop to think about how much better the world could be if people were simply allowed to try new things and give things a try. So,
yeah. Do you think one of the things that I get, and this is all, there's always like the push pull on things, and depending on the perspective, but when I show people that they can spend cryptocurrency on basic things, a lot of times they get very excited if they care about the concept of cryptocurrency, of course. If they care, they get excited like, wow, this is cool. I didn't realize this was so far along. You can do all this stuff. And then that's like a prime candidate. But then there's a 50-50 on that. Half of them like that. And the other half tend to be asking questions about like, well, how do I report this on taxes? Like, do I have to, if I buy a coffee with this, with the money that I bought yesterday, and it goes up a little bit, is it like a regulatory nightmare? Am I going to go in jail for buying coffees with this stuff? Like is instead of a card or something? Now, do you think that first off, is that mostly a US based concern? And second, do you think that is an actual barrier for like a serious barrier that would actually stop people from using this as money, everyday money, as long as it's still around?
Sure, it's a huge, huge barrier. And just the fact that a bunch of the people that you talk to, that's one of their top concerns. How do I report this? That's a huge, huge, huge barrier to adoption. And I think it's worth pointing out that, and I think you were involved in Bitcoin early enough too, where you remember like originally the entire goal was this was money for the world. Everybody should be using this as money. And then the IRS came out with some ruling in like 2013 or 14 saying that Bitcoin's not money, it's property. And you have to report all these capital gains taxes and this and that. And they basically took the stance that like using Bitcoin as money would be a regulatory nightmare to comply properly with the IRS. And then these other group of people, the Blockstream and small blockers, came out with the exact same stance as the IRS, that no, Bitcoin's not money. It's supposed to be a store of value, digital gold that you're just supposed to hold. And so like these people have the exact same opinion of Bitcoin as the IRS. Were they in cahoots with the IRS? Probably not. Were they tricked or stupid or fooled into that? Yeah, probably. At the very least, they were naive. Like if the IRS says something, they're probably wrong, right? So when was the last time you trusted the IRS to tell you anything about money, right? Like their entire incentive is to extract as much money from the people and get the least people riled up. Just like, the chicken farmer wants to pluck as many feathers as you possibly can from the chickens with getting them, the least riled up. And so that's exactly what's going on here. And so now, there's other things like Dash, which is supposed to be digital cash, of course, Bitcoin Cash, and a number of others out there that are trying to be useful as cash, but just really heartbreaking to see like the world's stance on Bitcoin change from it supposed to be, digital cash to being the exact thing that the IRS wants it to be. Like, talk about a giant co-option of what Bitcoin was supposed to be.
That, and obviously always apply Occam's razor to things. And the whole Bitcoin scaling thing is, of course, very well documented, hours long, whatever. We already know about that. But as far as adopting the same stance as the IRS, it makes sense if you're trying to sell something, like if you're trying to sell the most Bitcoin to the most people and make the most profit, it makes sense that you'd want to sell something that won't require people to feel risky. And I'm not saying this in a positive way, by the way. I'm not saying that if you want everyone to use this stuff. I'm saying if you just want to say, hey, buy it, no risk, it's going to go up, number go up. It's easy to just say, say the same stuff that the regulating authorities say rather than this is money, whereas the US government does not think it's money necessarily. And then there could be that, like, you have to think for yourself for a moment.
Yeah, I guess that's the other problem is there's just way too many monkey see, monkey do people out there in the world, and they just follow the herd without thinking for themselves at all. And I don't know how to change that. So
Yeah, I don't think that I think it's innate to human nature, and it is my personal opinion is it's a leftover survival mechanism for you band together in tribes and follow the leader because you don't have enough time or perfect enough information to make up your own mind. And that's how we made it this far. But unfortunately,
in today's world, it's not as useful of a trait. Where
Yeah.
historically it was. I think you're right about that.
It's definitely lessening in importance. But so we still have this awesome technology that works for payments. And first off, roughly how much of your life do you think how much of your life do you tend to spend cryptocurrency on, as far as like what percentage roughly of all your stuff? And I mean, I guess you could probably assume that percentage could be close to 100, right? It could be if but again, every once in a while I take a few dirty pieces of paper and go, because I don't want to go to that place anymore. I want to go to the place that does not take crypto. So where do you think you're at in percentage, and where do you think you could be?
Yeah, so I use crypto for just about everything. It's easier for me to name the things that I'm not using crypto for.
Yeah.
And even to some extent, I'm kind of using crypto for them. So the things that I'm not using it for directly are like rent to the landlord and some utility bills. But maybe I'll be able to try out, Lamium or some other service to get the utility bills that are paid in the future. But like pretty much everything else, all the groceries, all the stuff from Amazon, like all my clothes, like my, this bottle of water here, like just about everything is paid using cryptocurrency. The only thing that I probably still use physical cash for is occasionally I'll use it for tipping, for when delivery people are coming to my home, and mainly because like I'm a little bit scared for people to know exactly where I live. And if I start handing out Bitcoin Cash tips to people that are making deliveries to my house, then they'll probably think, oh, who is this guy? And like, it's probably fine, but like, it's also a little bit scary as well. So, but for anybody else, like check out gifts.bitcoin.com. I don't know if you've seen it. It makes it so easy to make a physical Bitcoin Cash tip that you can give to people. It's just a private key on a piece of paper. But and Bitcoin.com never has your private keys. But what we do keep is a signed transaction to send the money back to you. So if the person you give the tip to doesn't claim it after 30 days, the money goes right back to your own wallet without Bitcoin.com ever having your private keys or touching your money. It just has a signed transaction to send the money back to you. So that's been fantastic. And I do use those, physical tips when I'm out and about and whenever I need tips. But I give them some of the traditional, money so they're not mad. Like, what kind of cheapskate guy is this where he's, just giving me a piece of paper with some weird thing I got to sign up for and no normal tip. So I give him a normal tip plus the Bitcoin Cash on top of that. And it's really neat. I can keep an eye and see what percent of the people actually bother to claim it. And it's so easy to claim. Like it's actually a real high percentage of the people get around to claiming it. So.
Oh, that's very nice. I remember when, I believe that was originated as coin tip or...
Kind of. So they were doing it different in a kind of a custodial way. So we figured out how to just do it in a completely non-custodial way where anybody can use it. So the place where I think this will be really perfect is coming up for Halloween for all these people in the U.S. Like, give all your trick-or-treaters like some candy, but give them a dime or a quarter or a dollar or whatever amount you think is appropriate in your neighborhood worth the Bitcoin Cash to them. And the neat part about it is if the kids or their parents don't figure out how to claim it, the Bitcoin Cash comes right back to you. So like even if you're giving out $1 to every trick-or-treater, maybe only 50% are going to claim. So it actually winds up just costing you like 50 cents per trick-or-treater there. So
yeah, because that's definitely an early days of Bitcoin issue is a lot of people were giving out a lot of tips, a lot of wallets were lost, a lot of things like that. And so on that note about losing money and things like that, cryptocurrency's come a long way. And for example, my first wallet for many years had a single address, a single public key. Was not an HD wallet, didn't generate extra. And when that did come out, I got confused and a little bit angry. I'm like, why do I have all these different addresses? This is the one. This is mine. Who created a bunch more? Where is the money anyway? But technology evolves. How ready do you think? Obviously, when you talk about how ready for mass adoption, the answer is always, I'm ready to give it a shot, right? But as far as something that the average consumer today, And it's not just the base technology, it's like the apps and the merchant solutions and things like that. How ready is all that infrastructure so that the average person would probably be like, you know what, I'll give this a try instead. I'll start using this instead.
Yeah, it's not ready today is the truth of the matter, but it's closer to being ready today than it was last year or the year before that. And it's slower than we would like progress, but it's still progress and it's getting better. And even if you look at the Bitcoin.com wallet from today versus a year ago, like, wow, what a huge, huge, huge improvement. But it's still not good enough. There's still more it needs to be able to do. It needs to be easier for people. But we're definitely making progress day in and day out. And I have the Dash wallet on my phone here as well. Like, it's definitely better than it used to be. I think you're the one who told me about it previously. So like, things are making progress, but they're still not as good or easy as they need to be.
Yeah, and of course, on that note about the Dash wallet, what I like the most about the new refresh of it, that was, I'm pretty sure it's like a month ago or so, is right at the beginning when you just open the app, there's a send and receive option. So you hit the app, and then right there's a quick send, quick receive. So it's just like, you don't have to go through, oh, what's my PIN? Let me get through a bunch of things like that. And as someone who actually sometimes is like whipping my phone out quickly to pay for something in public, it's definitely necessary. And of course, that kind of goes to the smaller the percentage of the people in crypto are just coder nerds. And the more you have other people who actually know how to interface with the rest of what I call the meat space, the actual people, the more this kind of moves along. Now,
Totally agree. Let's make it easy for everybody that's not, a crypto coder nerd. So.
Yeah. So as far as, let's say, friends, colleagues, employees, and such, how common is crypto spending amongst the other ones? Like, not just yourself, as in your circle.
My whole circle of friends and family and everybody now, like, all of them use crypto. Like, if they're not using crypto, like, I'm busy with all my crypto friends. So like, they've kind of been dropped out of my purview in life. I'm focused on all the people that are using crypto and doing my best to continue to spread that.
Yeah. Are there any that are sort of like on the edge that maybe use it a little bit, but are still fiat heavy that you think you could nudge over the edge?
Yeah, so I haven't gotten the whatever, the customs tax office or whatever it is here to start accepting cryptocurrency yet. So that's one of the few times I still have to use the traditional currency. But there's talk about doing a digital dollar down here as well in the Caribbean, which that would be fun too. And then the sooner people digitize some of these other stuff, it just makes it easier to go in and out to like real full-on cryptocurrencies rather than just like state issued, dollar-backed tokens. So
yeah, do you see any benefit other than possibly legitimizing the concept of cryptocurrency? Is there any benefit to these sort of state-run tokens? Because I gotta say, I honestly don't really get them other than we burned the last fiat to the ground, we might as well create a new one.
Yeah, there's some of that, but I think the other benefit there too is it just makes the onboarding and offboarding to real cryptocurrencies that much easier. Because
and that can't be the state's agenda, though.
No, but like, I think very, very, very few people in the state realize just how disruptive cryptocurrencies are going to be to the state's control of the economy. And a lot of them just think, oh, we can save a bunch of money by making digital dollars on a blockchain. Sure, we'll do that. And I don't think they're fully, they're just looking one step ahead rather than 10 steps ahead. So. Yeah,
absolutely. Now, switching to less direct money and more kind of, crypto in general. I don't know if you've been watching the YouTube censorship kind of go up. I know your good, dear, close friend, Tone Vase was affected as well. And I believe his channel's back. But do you think now, how about crypto-based platforms, censorship resistant, supposedly, platforms? Do you think that they are ready for prime time?
So actually, if I can talk about Tone for a moment,
yes.
So like, I want to say, like, I don't dislike Tone. Like, he's never rude to people, and he's willing to have a discussion, and like, kudos to him for that. There's other Bitcoin core maximalists that just intentionally go out of their way to be rude and insulting and do name calling. And if Tone has done that, I've missed it and haven't seen him do that. And for the most part, like, Tone is a civil person when he talks about this sort of stuff. So kudos to him for that.
Yes,
and even though I think
the Tone character, Tone, I think Tone I don't know him very well, but the person seems to be a decent human being. The character seems to be a little bit theatrical.
Yeah, maybe there's some of that too. And whereas there's some other Bitcoin maximalists where like I wouldn't want to hang out. Like Tone, I would gladly, hang out with socially and play a poker game or something with him. Like I wouldn't have a problem with that. There's some other Bitcoin maximalists like I don't want to see. I don't need people like that in my life. They're just so rude and mean and just nasty people. And I don't need nasty people in my life. I don't think Tone is one of those nasty people. I think he's totally wrong about the scaling debate and totally ignorant about a lot of the stuff that he talks about. But I don't think he's a mean, nasty person. I don't think even people that are totally wrong and ignorant about lots of the things they're talking about, I don't think they deserve to have their YouTube channel deleted. I think the solution to people that are spreading wrong ideas or to have more people spread, the right ideas, and to see YouTube going out there and just, deleting all sorts of channels and this and that, like it's scary. So Bitcoin.com, we just recently started publishing all of our content over on a LBRY as well. And I want to see more of these decentralized platforms get more and more traction because I'm the CEO of YouTube. She was just online a couple of days ago saying that they're going to delete anybody's content from YouTube that's not in agreement with the World Health Organization. But the World Health Organization today is in disagreement with itself from a couple of weeks ago. So like, talk about a crazy double standard. Are they going to delete all the content that was supporting the World Health Organization stance from a couple of weeks ago because it contradicts what it says today? Or what about the reverse? Like, it's just absolutely crazy. Like, I'm a free speech maximalist, I think.
Yeah, and that's something that's pretty crazy is because I remember when the coronavirus whole thing came out, when it started to become things people started talking about in the Western world. And in the beginning, YouTube videos were instantly demonetized or taken down if they so much as mentioned that. And so I remember quite a few YouTubers were doing it in like a Voldemort sort of a way of the virus that shall not be named, or the what I'm going to talk about is going, just to avoid it. And then that wave of censorship lasted about a week at most. And then all of a sudden, now YouTube itself was promoting the virus, was talking about the virus, was every video has
commercial on every single video with an advertisement for leading to I think some government website talking about the coronavirus. Yeah, it's everywhere. You can't escape it now.
Yeah, it's all over the place. And so YouTube seems to be like Twitter has gone into some degrees of censorship. YouTube seems to be the most egregious because it's not so much censoring things that they don't agree with or they don't believe. It's more it goes into the realm of what I call aggressive curation, where it's not just here's the rules, here's what we want, here's what you are allowed to say and aren't allowed to say, go for it. It's more like we're going to delete and demonetize content that isn't exactly what we want, not even within a range, but it's like politically motivated curation, where like only this political viewpoint is allowed to have their videos last on YouTube. And not even politically motivated. It's I've noticed this over the last couple of years. A few fitness people, martial arts channels, what do you call it? Comedians as well are getting all their content demonetized and stuff and the algorithms are, not because YouTube disagrees with their ability to say that kind of thing. It just YouTube wants to be a very specific thing and that kind of content isn't quite what they're looking for. So they're trying to just shove it away. And I've had half-hour long advertisements play on YouTube as well that are unskippable. And YouTube is becoming Tube, to be honest. Yeah, it's kind of, my new TV has it's built into the software. If you were watching YouTube on it previously, when you turn the TV back on, it just starts playing a YouTube video. It's not like it goes to this home screen, you can choose one. It just starts playing one, just like the old-fashioned TV. When you would turn it on, and whatever was on the channel was playing. Now that's how the new digital TVs are with YouTube, which was really surprising to me. It just started doing that. I think maybe there's some recent software upgrade. But another guy on YouTube that I'm just stunned hasn't been banned completely, but is just totally demonetized. But probably one of my favorite channels on YouTube is this guy named Mark Dice, who's a comedian. And I don't know if you've seen his channel. It's just stunning that he hasn't been demonetized yet. And he's not really a libertarian, but his content is fantastic there. I'm surprised they didn't kick him off. So I guess like the governor of New York or somebody had set up some phone line where you can tattle on people like they're not social distancing or this restaurant's open or whatever. And they were asking people to
to text photos of the people that were not social distancing themselves to whatever government phone number. Did you hear this news already? Do you know what people did?
I do. That people started sending all kinds of graphic pictures and other things like that, just trolling the lines, resisting in the way that they should.
I was telling my Japanese friend about that, how that happened. So apparently everyone was sending, both dick pics and Hitler memes of the guy, being like Hitler, trying to tattle on your neighbor. I told my Japanese friend about this, and they could not imagine Japanese people ever doing that. And they thought Americans are so crazy, but I thought it was the funniest thing I'd heard all week. So it's a nice way where people can rebel a little bit, I suppose. Yeah.
So now we got this whole censorship thing going on really strongly. So first off, now it's time for a little devil's advocate kind of moment where obviously with the understanding that people should be allowed to say what they want, even if it's dumb, even if it's wrong, even if it's possibly, fraudulent or scammy or even dangerous, one could say, but they should still be allowed to say what they want. Now, that being said, do you think that a lot of the YouTube crypto purge and also other platforms has mostly affected people who in some way, shape or form could be considered as having it coming to them? Because I've heard this argument with people saying that the clean people who, don't, basically the people who make all kinds of basically scammy content saying like, oh, invest in this, it's going to go up tenfold, here's my referral link, all that kind of like sketchy thing, possibly dishonest thing, again, Tonevay's kind of the kind of stuff he talks about, that kind of stuff seems to be affected more. So do you think that do you think there's any truth to that idea that it's partially people who, if anyone would deserve to be taken off, it would be them, that they got affected more?
Yeah, maybe. I don't really know, to be honest, because I'm not watching Tonevay's YouTube channel or any of these other guys that are hyping whatever. I'm usually watching more technically oriented stuff or discussions. Like this morning, I was watching a philosophical discussion between Sam Harris and what's the Jewish young kid that's a conservative guy?
Ben Shapiro?
Yeah, Ben Shapiro, those two. And it was such an interesting discussion. And I found it much more intellectually stimulating than watching a Tonevay's video or some of the guys that are even lower brow than Tone's videos. So I don't watch those. So I don't really have an opinion as to just how scammy they are. But like at the end of the day, like if people want to make videos and pump out their affiliate links, like go for it. And to some extent, like YouTube is a private-ish platform where they can decide what the content that's allowed. The big problem I have is just how arbitrary it seems to be. And I'd love to see some competition come. And, just like some competition came to Friendster in the form of MySpace, and then MySpace went to Facebook, maybe there'll be something after Facebook, and maybe there'll be something after YouTube. And, maybe it's LBRY, maybe it's DTube, maybe it's something else. And the sooner the better. In my book, competition leads to better quality products for everybody involved.
So how would you say then that today some of these less censorship pro or censorship resistant entirely alternatives measure up in terms of the almighty holy grail of user experience? Like, are they kind of ready? Is it something you feel comfortable recommending to friends if they don't really care about being censored?
No. The short answer is, and part of the usefulness, part of the utility here on these things is the network effect. YouTube is amazing because this giant network effect with however many new videos every single day and tons of people are there perusing videos all the time. LBRY doesn't have that network effect. And even though it's cool because you have censorship resistant stuff, it doesn't have the same network effect as a YouTube. And so overcoming that network effect is really, really hard. And that's just like within the cryptocurrency sphere. Like why is Bitcoin still the top dog? It's not because it has the best user experience in terms of like the transacting in chain. It's because it has the best user experience in consideration of its giant network effect and name recognition, and just people just go with the incumbent. And so will that be overcome someday? Yeah, I think it will be, because that user experience has been so bad for so long and so unreliable, but it's taken years and years, and it still hasn't been overcome yet. So I think the same will be true of the YouTubes of the world. I think someday they'll be overcome, but overcoming that network effect in the short term is really, really hard. YouTube will have to have some more major screw ups, and Bitcoin will have to have some more major fee incidences for more people to switch.
Yeah, I mean that's for one. I think about how I'm a heavy YouTube user, just because rather than putting on like for example all the podcasts I would listen to would be that, or any kind of videos, like for example an interview such as this, I'll have that play in the background while I'm run around writing things, sharing things on social media, whatever. I find that about half of my time now is spent consuming on the LBRY platform, and then half of it is YouTube for the things that usually are less work related, but also I can't have them on. They aren't on LBRY yet. But I'm pleasantly surprised that I'm at like a 50% already. In fact, Bitcoin.com's videos, I don't. I'm sorry, I'm stealing YouTube views away from you guys because I only watch them on LBRY now.
That's fine. We don't mind where you watch. When we just started putting them on LBRY, so hopefully, I'd love to see the day where we get more views on LBRY than we do on YouTube. That would be fantastic in my book.
Yeah, in fact, that as I mentioned off air, our mutual friend, I guess Naomi Brockwell. First off, her last few videos, or quite a few, have been just demonetized on YouTube. And as someone that does that for a living, it's kind of, YouTube's the big platform. That's kind of rough. And then more particularly, she did one video about switch to LBRY, which of course was demonetized on YouTube. And it got more views on LBRY than it did on YouTube. And I'm sure part of that is because, everyone on LBRY is sharing it because it's relative to the platform. And of course, the LBRY itself, which is not the largest, but I think the second largest channel on LBRY is the official LBRY one, shared it. And it's kind of interesting to where now it can become, for some people, a bigger platform. And for example, my channel on YouTube, I think I have somewhere around like 177 views or something. 177 subscribers, something small, because in order to monetize it, they want you to have at least 1,000 views now to even start, at least 1,000 subscribers, and at least 4,000 hours of viewing time in a month. And all this nonsense. And my LBRY channel is in the top 190 LBRY channels of like 700 and few subscribers to date. I think it's becoming a lot better to do that kind of thing. Now, when you're talking about network effects related to Bitcoin, and that is something that I kind of had to go through waves of thinking. So first I thought, all these things work. Bitcoin's the biggest one. I'm leaning into it because it's 85% market dominance or more. And then when problems started to happen, late 2016, I switched. And then I went for a while being frustrated. Why does anyone use this stuff? It doesn't work. It takes like a week to, my last Bitcoin transaction ever took 2 weeks. Why is anyone using this? And I've sort of come to an equilibrium thing of where the user experience is the network effect to a certain extent, to where
that's part of it, for sure.
Yeah. And I remember especially, a lot of times fees are higher for other coins when you're doing in and out of fiat services and things like that, because the spread, it might a
less
large
liquidity,
purchase,
sure.
So also I remember in my first days, and back in 2016, I started living all off of Dash. And of course that was like a year before Bitcoin Cash ever existed even. And, back when Bitcoin was in the high 80s of market dominance. And I remember a lot of time, about 2/3 of the things that I bought were some sort of a shapeshift plugin thing, where I would it'd switch over to Bitcoin, and user experience was terrible because now they had to wait for Dash confirmations, which they didn't have to, but they didn't know about instant send. No one recognized that back then. And then you have to go through the Bitcoin thing. I have to say, even though the market dominance is slowly trending down, the network effect dominance for Bitcoin seems to be dropping like a stone. And maybe this is completely anecdotal, and I'm sure you have much more educated opinion on this matter, but I'm finding there to be almost no reason I'd ever want to have BTC these days. And the only one is I use this social network called Float, Flote, and it includes with it a crypto Patreon, which allows you people to give you like monthly donations, and they don't take a cut. And also in their live stream, they have a super chat like on YouTube, but they don't take a 40% cut. But it's BTC only, and that's not by design. That's just until they can get everything else set up. But that's literally the only reason I've ever had to interface with BTC in the last couple of years. Or that there's even advantage of that. And it used to be Purse was one of those advantages. And then they started accepting Bitcoin Cash. I don't understand why they don't want to open up to other coins as well, but hey, that's a different conversation.
I think you can deposit any coin on Purse now. They have like a shapeshifter, sideshift.ai integration, and you can deposit Dash and Ethereum and whatever else over there now, I think.
Yeah, so do you kind of see the same situation where the network effect is as far as, I mean, I'm always using it as a consumer, as in where can I spend it? What services are available to me? What rates are available to me as a consumer? But maybe behind the scene, the more industrial strength liquidity, things like that. Like I don't have exposure to that. So where do you think, do you see the same thing as me, or is it?
Yeah,
Or is
I
it kind
do
of?
see the same thing. Like everybody's busy switching to multiple different coins because they know the user experience for using Bitcoin for payments is bad. But for the industrial side of things or the business side of things, like Bitcoin has the most liquidity out of any cryptocurrency, so it makes it useful on that front. But the main reason why anybody would want to hold any Bitcoin at this point is they hear the number go up, and they're hoping that that'll become a self-fulfilling prophecy. But I think what drives that in the long term is the actual usefulness in commerce. And so we're seeing things like Purse.io and all these other things using Bitcoin Cash or other cryptocurrencies. So where do I think Bitcoin's market dominance is going to go from here? It's going to continue to go down as long as it has a bad user experience, which it does. And I think so. Like this guy Jack, the head of Twitter, he's been a big Bitcoin proponent recently. But he's new to Bitcoin, right? He hasn't been around. I think he missed the scaling disaster at the end of 2017, where the average confirmation time was 2 weeks and the average fee was more than $50. Anybody running a business paid more than $1,000, tons of times for transactions. In fact, there's more than 28,000 transactions took place on the Bitcoin network in which the fees for the transaction were more than $1,000. So I think Jack probably missed all of that and has no clue how bad the user experience became. And I think he still doesn't understand that, like, the software engineers behind the Bitcoin project were literally cheering, saying, pop the champagne, this is a success, the fees are super high, the transactions take 2 weeks on average, hooray, hooray, hooray. And for anybody that with any common sense that was around in those days, they can see, oh, this is an absolute disaster. And it drove all sorts of people away from Bitcoin. And I would be embarrassed to try and promote Bitcoin to somebody today because it has such a bad user experience. And, I was, inarguably one of the biggest promoters of Bitcoin for years and years and years. But these, economically illiterate technical software developers destroyed the usability of Bitcoin in commerce, and people like Jack and others just haven't figured that out yet. But eventually they'll figure it out. Or eventually they'll solve the technical problems. But I'm not optimistic on that front. They've had, it's been perpetually 18 months away, and it doesn't seem any closer to being there today than it was 18 months ago. So
Yeah, I mean, I should probably start using Lightning Network a little bit because I have a lot of opinions and information on it that are not informed by the only thing that I can trust, which is real experience. So I should probably get in on that and just have it get over having a terrible time sooner rather than later, just so I can speak more confidently about it. But I have noticed that there is that mythos of Bitcoin, of this is the original. And a friend of mine on a podcast yesterday was actually saying basically the same thing about that's a lot of where the valuation comes from of something is in the originalness of it. The copy is always going to be sort of less valuable unless it becomes new and better and innovates on a different front.
Yeah, what the public doesn't understand, though, is that the thing that everybody's calling Bitcoin today, it's not the Bitcoin that got everybody excited early on. And you even have Cobra, the guy that owns Bitcoin.org and BitcoinTalk.org there, literally saying that they should delete the white paper because it's not talking about the Bitcoin project today, and they need to come up with a new white paper and the Bitcoin white paper, if you read it, the very title is a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. That describes Dash or Bitcoin Cash or a lot of these other coins a lot more than it describes BTC today. People mock the idea of using Bitcoin as cash today, yet that's in the very title of the original white paper. So if you want the original Bitcoin, it's not BTC, even though that's what everybody's calling Bitcoin in the masses today. It's just, people are busy in their lives. They don't have time to study this deeply, and they think, oh, that must be Bitcoin because everyone else is calling it Bitcoin, even though it bears almost no resemblance to the project that I got so excited about early on. Yeah,
and that there is a lot. So BTC code base is something that everything major basically backports to. It copied originally, and then now copies with some issues. And I remember there's a young software developer who actually was a volunteer developer for the Dash project, and then got a job out of just being a volunteer, some curious kid, and who does a lot of the backports, and was talking about how it's becoming annoying to backport Bitcoin because you just having to get around replace by fee, get around SegWit and all that kind of stuff. And eventually like the Dash code base is going to be completely fresh and won't be able to have that. And that's like a lot of the value of BTC still is being the thing that things draw from. And as that diverges, then as more and more projects are just drawing on themselves or on other things, then that originalness value starts to become, I guess, less compelling. And at that point, I think then maybe we can see some differences in what people gravitate towards first. But that's the kind of thing is people go top down. No one is like, oh great, I like crypto. Let me look in like the fifth page of CoinMarketCap and just see what kind of cool projects can I find there. I mean, if you're what one could call a shitcoin flipper, maybe you would do that if you just want to go, play whale games and make a little profit. But, so what do you think is going to be the next thing that not necessarily the thing that flippins Bitcoin necessarily, but what do you think is going to be the next thing that gets a lot of the more mainstream type, like the Jack Dorsey's kind of attention? Do you think it's going to be Ethereum? That's going to be something that gets people like looking at it? Do you think it's going to be something like Bitcoin Cash? Do you think it could be Litecoin? I mean,
yeah. So people like it's just idiotic for me that I guess it makes sense, but Charlie denies it. So Charlie Lee, the creator of Litecoin, always says, no, Bitcoin, you need to limit the block size. But if Litecoin, the blocks ever became full, I'd just make the block size bigger. So like his motivation to do that is like if he can cripple Bitcoin, Litecoin becomes way more relevant and way more useful. And so we've seen a lot of these other, developers of other coins do the same thing. Bitcoin Cash outside of Bitcoin has the biggest network effect for use in payments. I'm really bullish there. And for anyone that hasn't read about Cash Fusion, like I think that's a really, really big deal for Bitcoin Cash. It'll give Bitcoin Cash privacy, just as good as any other, coin like Monero or anything, where they're literally the number of potential combinations of the way your coins are going to be shuffled up is more than the total number of atoms in the universe. That's a pretty big deal, and I can't wait to build that right into the Bitcoin.com wallets. Then you have fast, cheap, reliable, and super private transactions that you can, onboard a new person to, and it takes longer to download the app than it does to start using it. That to me seems like a pretty compelling use case. And then combine that with the fact you can save 20% on every purchase on Amazon. I think that's a pretty good dynamo to drive more attention and more usage. The downside is that there's, whatever the market cap of Bitcoin is at the moment, there's, however many, was it $100 billion or something at the moment, $138 billion of Bitcoin. And so all the capital that people have in Bitcoin, those people are incentivized to build on top of Bitcoin and spread the Bitcoin network. Whereas the Ethereum network is like $21 billion worth of Ethereum and only like, a little less than $5 billion worth of Bitcoin Cash. So there's a lot less capital there ready to push things forward. And so the question is like, will the better user experience from things like Ethereum or Bitcoin Cash be able to overcome that bigger amount of capital that's pushing Bitcoin forward? And I don't know. We're going to find out though. But I don't know.
From like an anecdotal perspective, I have noticed that I have not seen a lot of development on BTC lately. Like a lot of, I do remember back when I would consider it not very useful for payments anymore, but there was still during that time period a lot of new projects that were coming out and saying we're going to build on this, we're going to create a service that uses that. There was a lot of that kind of stuff, and it kind of went flat and stale from my casual eyeballing of it. And there was a slight bump again when Lightning hit mainnet and people started saying, oh, I'm going to do they did a Lightning-based Patreon. They did BitRefill offers 2% off if you pay with Lightning and instant delivery. And there's like a few things that were going. And then I think that buzz sort of flattened off, maybe because it started to become too difficult to kind of build on this whole thing. And now we might be back to flatness.
Yeah, Lightning is an absolute joke, and it's just really disappointing because I wanted Lightning to work, right? Like I wanted Bitcoin to scale to be money for the whole world, but they strangled the version of Bitcoin that did work in the hopes of something that might work in the future, and it turned out it didn't work. And we were talking about Charlie Lee of Litecoin before. I made a bet with him more than 18 months ago that there would be less than 1,000 shops accepting Bitcoin. Accepting Lightning payments for physical goods, and here we are more than 18 months later, and there's like 300 and something shops that do. And the bet was that if I lost, I would wear whatever T-shirt Charlie wants, and we would come and have a talk all about Lightning, and we can promote it however he wants. And if I won, he would wear whatever shirt I chose, and we could talk about why did Lightning fail to get adoption. And he's refusing to do either of those things. He's claiming he won the bet without any sort of proof of it at all. And then if he won the bet, Charlie, send me my T-shirt and we can get online and talk about it just like we had agreed. Yet he's refusing to do either of those things, which I think seems really, really disingenuous. And then he sent me an email saying, Roger, please don't talk about it anymore. And it's like, why would I not talk about it anymore? Charlie, you literally help destroy the ability for Bitcoin to get adoption around the world and disrupt government's ability to control the economy. You delayed the entire progress of all of humankind. And it's a big part your fault, Charlie, for having helped delay that adoption. And you just asked me, Roger, please don't talk about it. No, of course I'm going to talk about it. I want to make the world a better place for everybody as fast as I possibly can. Absolutely. And Charlie and these other Bitcoin core maximalists with their censorship and propaganda delayed the progress of all of humankind. So you better damn well bet I'm going to continue to talk about that.
I did notice that kind of spirit with the person himself, and obviously not trying to get too gossipy, but of course we remember he was talking smack about Dash a whole lot online. And then at some point, some of the Dash developers start basically pushing back and then also saying, hey, didn't your coin have an inflation bug at the very beginning? And then he's like, don't talk about that. And then all the crypto media piled on it. And then now he got very embarrassed. Was like, now I think he's left Dash people alone after that whole thing came out. But you
should support every project that's trying to build useful things for the world. So like Litecoin, more power to you guys. I hope you build a peer-to-peer electronic cash system that's useful for people, or build something else that's useful for people. And I hope the Monero guys do, and the Dash guys do, and the Ethereum guys do. Like, let's build the world a better place for everybody. And like, don't tear down someone else's sandcastle. Just focus on building your own to be the biggest and best one you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's there's always been a group of crypto enthusiasts who just are into crypto, period. And I think, do you know who Ken Bozak is?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was, an antagonist of Bitcoin Cash for a long time, and now he's saying it's like the real Bitcoin and fight me. And he's saying stuff like that, like you just cannot, because he lives off the stuff, and it's like there's where it really kind of comes to the.
And I watched him just do a complete 180. I saw he did a tweet at some point, maybe a few months back, and he said, please don't hate me, but I'm starting to agree with Roger Ver about Bitcoin Cash. Whereas previously he had not had nice things to say about Bitcoin Cash. And, but he gave it a try at some point, and wow, what a turnaround. So, and I wish more people try all these cryptocurrencies, try Litecoin, try Ethereum, try Dash, try everything. And if it's useful, use it. And if it's not, then don't worry about it. Use the one that's useful to you.
Yeah, and that's one thing which is kind of comes full circle back to the fiat free challenge type thing. I don't consider myself an expert in pretty much anything, but things that I talk about that I know up here, I don't really trust them unless I know in person. Like, for example, this crazy spinny, back take to armbar to whatever move that you learn in jiu-jitsu, whatever. It's like, that could totally kick your butt. Okay, well, let's see. You try it. You're like, okay, that didn't turn out well at all. Well, maybe I need to figure it out a little bit more. And so the same thing with living off of crypto, that it's easy to say, oh yeah, we got all the best this, do a Donald Trump style, the best everything, really. It's easy to say that, but then when you actually use it, you learn a lot. And you learn about where the friction points are, where the friction point aren't, and what works practically and what doesn't work practically, and things like that. And I would really encourage people to lean into the usage, even if you hate it, just because at least you're going to know why you hate it at that point. You're going to be able to be an educated consumer.
That's a great analogy. So you can watch YouTube videos all day long on jiu-jitsu, but it's not going to help you be good at it unless you go out there and actually try. You can watch videos on how to be an Olympic level swimmer all day long. If you're not in the pool swimming some laps, you're not going to know that much about swimming. And it's the same with cryptocurrency. You can watch YouTube videos all day long and read about it. If you don't actually try using it, you're not going to realize which ones have the good user experience and which ones don't. So go and give them a try.
So it sounds like a full-throated endorsement of the fiat-free challenge then, huh?
Absolutely. I think it should be just not like a 1 month fiat-free challenge. Go for a one lifetime fiat-free challenge. Use crypto every single chance you have in every aspect of your life.
So to conclude this whole thing, what's the one thing if you can't keep it to one, what excites you the most that's coming up in the next, let's say, over the course of the year, hopefully? What are you most looking forward to? What would you if you wanted to, whatever sense of optimism you may have, I'm sure there's pessimism too, but whatever sense of optimism, where does that stem from that you would share with someone?
So the thing that I think has me the most excited in the short to medium term there. So Bitcoin Cash has like it's the second most used currency in the world in terms of like the amount of money moved every single day in the native token on chain. So BTC is number one. Bitcoin Cash is number two most days, ahead of even Ethereum. I'm really, really excited to see Cash Fusion on there. So you'll have like basically super, super private transactions on top of the second most used cryptocurrency in the world with super low fees and super fast, payments. Like to me, that seems like a winning combination. And I want to, another thing, like, I don't know of anybody planning this, but it would just philosophically would be one of the most interesting things to happen is we have this dividend payment tool on Bitcoin Cash with the SLP tokens. I don't know if you've poked around with that at all, but Bitcoin Cash has tokens. You can send and receive them from the Bitcoin.com wallet right now. Every token just sits at a different Bitcoin Cash address. So you can scan the blockchain and say, okay, who has Joel tokens? You can see every address that has the Joel tokens. And then what you can do though is you can send a dividend payment to all the Joel token holding addresses. The dividend payment can be a Bitcoin Cash or another token. So what I really, really want to see happen is one of these like illegal darknet markets out there. They're already, risking, life in prison by running it. I want to see one of them have an illegal IPO and then start sharing the profits by using the dividend payment tool to all the token holders out there. Like, how amazing would that have been if the Silk Road had an IPO and then everybody around the world had the ability to become a shareholder in the Silk Road and then receive part of the profits that it made each month? Maybe it would have dissuaded law enforcement from being able to crack it, take it down. Maybe they would have, become shareholders and they think, oh, I'm earning money from this every month, I'm not going to take it down. So I think it would be so incredibly interesting for a darknet market to use the Bitcoin Cash dividend payment tool that if people want to see it, you can see it over at mint.bitcoin.com. We have it so easy to use there. You don't have to be a coder, you just click, click, click. I want to see a darknet market have an IPO and start paying dividends to their shareholders around the world. I think that would be so incredibly philosophically interesting.
And that's what Cash Fusion is also for. So you can make sure people don't necessarily know who's a shareholder, because being a proven shareholder in a dark market could be
that might be illegal in some places too. Sure.
Yeah. Well, it sounds, obviously as someone who actually uses mixed transactions in my day-to-day purchases, I'm definitely excited for any kind of usability on the privacy front. So that's definitely good. So where would people go to find out more about, either you want to send people at your YouTube channel, your LBRY channel, or do you want to just send people to bitcoin.com? Where should people go?
Bitcoin.com is probably the best place to go. And actually, if we can add one more interesting future technology that's coming, have you seen this flipstarter.cash website?
I've seen it mentioned on Twitter, and I saw someone complain they couldn't donate the exact amount they wanted, but I'm sure it's just like it's certainly not at the level where it's user friendly yet, but it's a sign of what's to come. And so I think this is really interesting for like libertarians though too. So like you have this like public goods problem, like how do you fund public goods, right? How do you get everybody to chip in for that new road or bridge or whatever it is? And so this is a really cool way to do fundraising, whereas instead of you just give the money and that's it and you hope things everybody else chips in. Basically, you're pledging a certain amount of money, and there's a target threshold set. And so, like, let's say the target threshold. In fact, there's one going on over there right now for the Bitcoin Cash node, and they want just under 1,000 Bitcoin Cash. So, like, you can pledge whatever amount there, or it's kind of jerky as to what because it's up to 600 people or whatever. Anyhow, there's some technical things that need to be polished. You can pledge whatever amount, and your funds are then locked in your wallet, but you don't actually pay them until the pledge amount has reached whatever the target amount is. So if they don't reach 1,000 Bitcoin Cash, you don't have to pay anything. So you only have to pay the amount that you pledged if everybody else chips in and reaches the total amount. So I think that's a really interesting way. Like, let's say like you need to repave the road in the town that you live in where everybody's using it. Well, you can set up one of these things and like it doesn't get paid unless everybody chips in and reaches the target amount. And if it doesn't, then like you don't have to worry about one guy getting screwed that he gave a bunch of money and then it didn't happen or whatever. So I think this is a really interesting way in the future to fund what have traditionally been government-funded services. It's still, you have to install some plug-in to Electron Cash, and it's not an easy thing to use yet, but it's only been out a couple of weeks or months, and it'll get better and better as the months go by. And so I'm really philosophically interested in things like that to fund like public goods without having to resort to coercion. Yeah, well, that seems like a pretty fascinating thing, and I hope a lot of people start leveraging that to, fundraise in a less susceptible way. Yeah, so thanks again for coming on here, and enjoy the rest of your staycation. Mandatory fun.
Yeah, thank you, Joel. You enjoy yours as well.